Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. President Cyril Ramaphosa has called on businesses in Saudi Arabia to be part of the renewed monument of international investors coming to South Africa. Ramaphosa made the remarks at the Saudi Arabia-South Africa Investment Conference. He told the forum that investment between the two countries already totals $5 billion. The president anticipates that this amount could increase over the next few years. The two countries have signed several bilateral agreements. Ramaphosa also hopes to see a renewable energy partnership with the kingdom. For more, we are now joined by Thembisa Fakude, a senior research fellow and director at Africa-Asia Dialogue. Very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. We know that the visit by the president and the South African delegation comes as no surprise because it was initially meant to have taken place in April, but postponed because of the deadly KZN floods here at home. Now, the two countries have signed several bilateral agreements. What does it all signify?
Well, it signifies the strengthening of relationships between Saudi Arabia and South Africa. Most of the bilaterals that were signed were about the promotion of economic relationships. Saudi Arabia intending to invest more in South Africa, as South Africa desperately seeking investment, particularly from Saudi Arabia with very deep pockets. And they are currently looking for alternative markets and also to diversify the economy, which is by and large consisted or concentrated on gas and oil. So South Africa is one of those countries where, one, they could import a lot of fresh produce. We know that Thembisa, who met with Agri-SA on Friday, is part of the delegation, and Saudi Arabia has been importing a lot of fresh produce from African countries, including South Africa. So one hopes that that particular business will increase, including infrastructure, of course. That also will impact. We had earlier on President Cyril Ramaphosa also talking about the ambitions of Saudi Arabia joining BRICS.
Saudi Arabia, as you make mention of the key ministers who were on the trip, the likes of Agriculture Minister Thembisa, we know that Transport Minister Fakude was also part of the delegation. In terms of Saudi Arabia's expansion plans, why was it important to have the Transport Minister? Because in terms of, expansion and advancement, Saudi Arabia is a few steps ahead of us.
Totally. I think Fakude is an exception because I'm not quite sure whether Fakude will teach the Saudis how to deal with the public transportation systems. Saudi Arabia, as you said, is much more ahead. I think for Fakude it was more of a learning trip. And one will hope that he will learn and will bring back some new innovative way, particularly when it comes to our railway system in South Africa.
Also, the renewable energy partnership with the kingdom, that in itself is a very important element, as the president is hopeful that there will be some sort of movement and advancement there, especially looking at our situation here at home. I mean, load shedding is set to continue for some time.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has become an ambassador, an unofficial ambassador for just transition. And I'm not quite sure whether Saudi Arabia is ready to transition totally into the new alternative energies because they remain, the mainstay of the economy is oil and to a lesser extent gas. But I think what President Cyril Ramaphosa's message will be to Mohammed bin Salman, who is now the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, is to support the efforts of just transition. But importantly, of course, even though I was scolded earlier when I said that Cyril Ramaphosa will also discuss the reduction of production of oil. As you know, OPEC announced that they were going to reduce the production of oil, which will impact on the energy prices and also impact on many other things, particularly energy sources in South Africa and across the world. So I am of the view that President Cyril Ramaphosa, to an extent, did whisper to Mohammed bin Salman and caution him and encourage him to increase the production of oil because it will have some serious, very, very devastating effect in the world economy. As we just moved out of COVID, we are looking at some sort of energy relief, and one of those countries that can help, given their influence within OPEC, is Saudi Arabia.
And the USA is having its midterm elections. I mean, just a few weeks ago, President Cyril Ramaphosa met President Joe Biden, and they also had their own discussions.
Yes, they did. But importantly is that President Joe Biden cautioned or warned Mohammed bin Salman of consequences after the decision that was made by OPEC. So it's likely that Cyril Ramaphosa, given his relationship with Joe Biden, would have sent a kind of a message to Mohammed bin Salman from Joe Biden, given that the midterm elections, as I say, are coming up, and the decision by OPEC to reduce the production of oil would definitely impact on the electability of Joe Biden come the midterm elections later this year.
So in terms of, these discussions now being rounded up, Saudi Arabia and South Africa, what do you think will be the long-term significance as we look at the amount of investment, with the president calling on businesses in Saudi Arabia to be part of this renewed momentum of international investors coming in to South Africa, especially looking at the state of our economy?
Well, one important thing is that South Africa has always been courting Saudi Arabia to invest in refineries in South Africa. That would have, of course, if it does happen, it will help us with increasing our petrol or energy reserves. So if Saudi Arabia does decide to invest in refineries, particularly in KZN, as earlier indicated, chances are that we might just have some sort of stability when it comes to energy supply, and that will definitely impact on future energy supplies to South Africa. So we hope that that request, those negotiations do go ahead, and Saudi Arabia does come and invest in South Africa, particularly when it comes to the refineries, which are desperately needed in this country.
Very well. Thank you so much for that. Thembisa Fakude, a Senior Research Fellow and Director at Africa-Asia Dialogue, speaking to us about that very important visit as the President visited Saudi Arabia.